Hi people, I'm just waiting for a few people to come in. Hi Femboy. Yeah. So hi Shin, how are you doing? Yeah, I just wanted to come on, do a quick live. Yeah, I've just done one on my other channel, but it didn't go so well, so want to just let me know how they're doing and what they're up to. Hi Sayatis. So what do people think about threats and what have you, for taking in the Quran and apparently disrespecting the Quran? Because I've seen a video of the mother going to the mosque and apologizing for what her son has done by taking in the Quran and mistreating it apparently. It was really sad to see because at the end of the day, it is literally just a book, and he should not be given death threats and be harassed and bullied for anything like that. You know, he hasn't harmed anybody. And yeah, it was just really tragic to see a mother going into a mosque and groveling for forgiveness for her son, whereas it is the Muslim community who have been giving her death threats and being really vile to her son and her that should be getting the apologies. It is just beyond barbaric and tragic. And the other thing that makes me really furious is the fact that you see where these rules, these blasphemy rules of not desecrating and not offending a religion or religious sentimentalities, where that leads you. Because if you go to, hi Katia, if you go to any sort of like Islamic state where they have blasphemy laws or apostasy laws, you see how vile and the kind of barbaric situation people are in there. It's absolutely horrendous. I come from Bangladesh, and it's supposedly a secular country, and very proud tradition of secularism. It was founded on that as well. But if you have, because it's got a majority Muslim country, anybody in Bangladesh who speaks out and is critical of the religion is so under threat, and it and so many atheists and agnostics and people who have been treated, who have been vocal about their atheism or criticisms of the Quran and things like that, they have been murdered on the streets in broad daylight in a sort of like a secular country. But because it's got majority Muslims, that's how they are treated. And then in Pakistan, a few weeks ago, there was a young man, I think he's 23, and he was paraded through the streets. He was stripped naked and burnt alive, and people took footage of that on their camera phones. And, it was shared on social media all over the place. And it's that kind, if we, yeah, exactly, Katia. And that a year ago, and the incident that I've just described, a similar incident happened in Pakistan a year ago, where a Sri Lankan man was burnt alive by 200 people for apparently blaspheming the Prophet. And incidences like that happen all the time in places like Pakistan, just to settle personal scores. And people say, "Oh, they've done something, they blasphemed the Prophet and or the Quran and stuff like that." And yeah, it is absolutely horrendous. And when we see things like that happening in the UK, it just goes to show just how much this barbaric bullshit is spreading. If we're not careful, we will have to deal with that sort of shit here as well. And it's not on. Hi, I'm Jad Shaheen. It's nice to see you here. Um, and I think one of the other things that really depresses me is the fact that people don't see that a lot of people in Europe, a lot of the ruling classes in Europe, especially in the UK, they would quite happily have us in sort of like the ancient times where things like this were fine. If you look at not Prince Charles, King Charles, and you have morons like who are supposed to be left wing and intelligent, morons like Jeremy Corbyn, saying that Islam is a religion of peace and humanity, and you, I just wish these arseholes. I mean, I don't. I can understand that King Charles would want to enjoy the fruits of a religion that says um thanks, voice of reason. Yeah, so I can understand King Charles wanting to defend and being happy with the religion, Islamic religion. There's a lot in common with Christianity there, and it's all about divine rights of kings and birth privileges and slavery and all that kind of bullshit, where the concept of royalty and class divisions come from. But what I don't understand and what really pisses me off is when I hear people like Jeremy Corbyn, who is supposedly, a socialist, an internationalist, a human rights advocate, when he does bullshit like, say, Islam is the religion of peace and humanity and everybody should respect it and hear it. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And not just that, because I used to have a lot of respect for the man. I used to absolutely love Jeremy Corbyn and what he stood for because he has done a lot of really good stuff. He protested against apartheid in South Africa, and he was arrested for it. He led the Stop the War coalition in the UK, which were protested against things like the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, which I was against as well, because nobody should be bombarded and murdered and killed. I don't care what the circumstances are. But at the same time, he around 2012, he was working for he was on yeah, exactly. He was on the Iranian state TV hosting a show, and he was paid something like um, $5,000 or something like that for his appearance on the show. And, he did that for a good few years. It wasn't just a one off. And when you look at what is happening in Iran now, never mind now, I mean, over the last 43 fucking years, the Islamic regime have like completely, completely destroyed the lives of the people in Iran. whether it doesn't matter if the people are Muslims, Christians, Hindus. Everybody has suffered in Iran, and there's this arsehole who's supposed to be a human rights defender taking money from the fucking Iranian regime, appearing on their fucking state TV. I mean, what the fuck is wrong with the left in the West? What, it just beggars belief. But there is a bit of sign of hope. People might have heard of somebody called Mariam Namazi, who founded the ex-Muslims of Britain, and she's a prominent human rights activist, and she's a communist and what have you. And she has managed to set up alongside John McDonnell Iranian activist group that can meet in Parliament. I should know the details. I'm really bad, but there are links there. There are links being built there, so it's not all bad. And she did, John McDonnell did chair a meeting where people like Mariam Namazi were discussing the Iranian Revolution and the situation of women in Iran recently as well. So it's not all doom and gloom, but it's doom and gloom enough. Because if people, I don't know if people have heard of Novara Media, because this is another example of an institution, a socialist, a left-wing sort of like institution that I used to absolutely love, but they are just complete and utter arseholes when it comes to the question of Islam. So when it comes to the situation with this young boy in up north, one of their reporters, Ash Sarkar, her response is any sane. I'll add you on in a bit, private, if that's okay. I just need to finish my thought before it goes. But yeah, so I'll put you on in a bit. I just need to finish my thought because my brain just runs away with me. But yeah, so Ash Sarkar's response to what is happening with this 14-year-old boy is, oh, no normal Muslim would condone such behavior. And that was it. No insight beyond that. And the woman is such a moron. I mean, I've been a socialist and a lefty for like decades now, but I don't class myself as socialist anymore because I can see the kind of dumbness in it. I see myself more as an anarchist now. But the woman, oh my God, she drives me up the wall. Hi, Private.
Hello, my darling. How are you?
I'm good.
Sweet Rose.
Sorry?
I said my sweet Rose. I love you.
Oh, I love you too, Hen. Yeah, it's good to see you. I haven't one of the things that I've been struggling to do is do lives because I find them absolutely terrifying to do, and my brain is like so sort of like flittery. My mind travels and wanders everywhere, so I find them really hard to do. But when I've seen your lives, I've been like, no, I've got to try and do this because it's so important to have our voice out there. So yeah,
look, we need raising our voice.
So what you do and stuff like that, and just keep me motivated to keep going with this stuff. So yeah,
but you've got to keep me motivated as well because I have been. I get enormous amount of threats, Rose. I get enormous amount of threats. I know exactly how this boy probably feels like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know much about it, that his mum has actually gone on and called her autistic son stupid or silly.
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
my God,
I saw
How can a mother, her mother's role is to protect her child. How can she literally throw her child to the wolves and say, he's silly, he's autistic? Okay, shame on her. And shame
Oh,
on this Muslim
exactly.
community for constantly making a big deal out of the Quran's being, you know, being disrespected and all of that. Go back to a Muslim country. We're not Muslims.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. But the thing is, it's really disgusting. I saw the footage of it. I couldn't watch it all because it was just too heartbreaking and infuriating. But the mother is wearing the hijab, so she shouldn't have to wear the hijab. But I bet she felt intimidated into having to wear it. Um, and she was apologizing for her son, even though the community should be apologizing to her. You know what I mean? Because imagine sending death threats to anyone, but a child, and then
I mean, this is a community, yeah. People need to stand up and see. This is a community that will not even spare an autistic child.
yeah,
Do I need to
exactly,
say more? Do we? How long are
exactly,
we going to carry on being politically correct and caring about their sentiments when over little things this community decides to give threats out to people? And I've received
exactly.
those threats. I know what it's like.
Mm. And I am so sorry for the shit you have to deal with because it seems to be sort of like a lot of the threats and the ex-Muslims get on TikTok. You seem to have the disproportionate amount of it, and I'm really sorry about that. Um,
We
and
need to
that you
keep
have to
raising
go
our
through that.
voice, Rose. We need to keep
Yeah,
speaking because
exactly.
this is not a Muslim country.
Exactly. And even if it was, we shouldn't have any. I don't want anyone in the world anywhere to be suffering from this shit. Um, in
No, I don't.
Pakistan, a few years ago, they had a 8-year-old boy who was put on death row for damaging the Quran. Luckily, no, this was in Pakistan. An 8-year-old boy was put on death
Okay,
row.
let me just ask you straight up. I
Yeah,
personally, I have family members that are Muslim, okay? All right?
yeah,
And some family members who are atheists, who are agnostic, and of various different religions. I personally don't think there's anything wrong with someone burning a Quran.
no.
I don't. It's a book. And if you have a problem with it, then don't burn your one. If somebody else wants to burn it, that's their freedom of speech. We've got
Oh,
to stop
exactly.
this ridiculous behavior, yeah, that people are going so far. They're going onto the streets, they're protesting over a book being burnt. I'm not saying I would do it. I'm not saying it's good. I understand that it's provoking people. But then, this is a community that's going out and giving threats. I think the more important thing is we need to focus on is that how people are getting threats over a book being burnt rather than the fact that a book was being burnt. For
Oh,
me, the
exactly.
threats is the most. I mean, what I find astonishing about this that a 14-year-old boy is getting threats and nobody seems to see that part. An autistic
Oh,
child.
exactly. Exactly. It is just beyond belief, though, isn't it? These are, I mean, I don't know if you ever felt this way, but
Sorry, can I just say one more thing? Are you
yeah,
appalled at the fact that that child did that child get like expelled from school or something?
yeah, they got expelled
Oh
from
my
school.
God.
I think a few of their friends did as well, and the leader of the school, the head teacher, made an official apology as well.
Why?
Um,
Why?
and
And this is an autistic child. This is not in the welfare of the child. This is shaming that child. Imagine what that child is going through. And then where
exactly.
is the welfare, the protection of that child? And you've got the mother, the child's getting expelled. The mother is coming on and saying my child is silly. And yet, I mean, this is ridiculous. It needs to be the other way round.
Mm.
It
Do you
needs
know
to be
what
the
is
other way
even more
round.
sickening? Like if you'll see things like the situation in Iran where young children are being um, tortured and unalive for things,
Yeah.
and the Islamic community are not having any. It's like waiting for tumbleweeds to walk across, go across the field, waiting for them to condemn it and have any sort of protest. There is no protest about people who are being treated like shit in Iran and places like that, but they will quite happily protest something like a book being slightly damaged.
Well,
It's
you
absolutely
can see for
insane.
yourself. Forget them protesting about what's happening in Iran. This example, this situation is a good example of understanding the sort of the narrative and the way the most of this community thinks. They don't
Mm,
care. They would not even spare an autistic child, and I feel so angry.
yeah,
And I feel more angry at the police that they've
yeah,
managed to get involved over a book being burnt by a
yeah.
bunch of children, and the head teacher has expelled his child. He's gone and apologized, and the Islamic community has kind of pressurized that mother as well as the school to issue an apology, and the child's welfare and safeguarding has been completely forgotten.
Exactly. No, exactly. It's absolutely disgusting. But the police have a habit of doing that. They always side with the bigots and the sort of like um, religious extremists. I don't know if you've heard of Hatun Tash. She's a Christian from Turkey. I think she used to be a Muslim, and she was wearing a t-shirt and she was stabbed in Hyde Park. She was wearing a t-shirt with Muhammad's face on it or something. I can't remember, but she was stabbed in Hyde Park. And the police's response was that she shouldn't have been doing that. And that,
Oh
they've
God.
taken her
This
away
is
because she
ridiculous. Rather than protecting the citizens, because we have freedom of speech and freedom of expression, that's her way of expressing herself. Rather than
exactly.
protecting our rights, how dare they tell us we can't do this because of
Somebody's
a
put in
few
the
bigots?
comment.
I mean,
Exactly.
if you look at this community, they need to, rather than, I mean, if anything, the police and the authorities need to be telling this bigoted community to look at the amount of extremism which has spiraled out of control. I mean, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, I think was it a couple of
Yeah.
days ago, has said that we've got to stop, thinking about being politically correct because it's allowing the extremist Islamists to flourish.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody's just put in here. Hold on. Hatun is a hater. I mean, like, do you not see how moronically stupid that statement is? She's not the one that is going around stabbing people or giving them death threats. So how on earth is she the hater? Um, just answer me that in a sane way if you can.
This person, whoever you've took the tweet out of, who said people have rights, book don't. The Quran deserves no more respect than Winnie the Pooh. I totally agree. It's just
Oh,
a book,
exactly.
and a very,
Exactly. And
very
ideas
bigoted
don't have
Bible
rights
book.
either.
I mean, if anything, I'd have more respect for Winnie the Pooh books than I have for the Quran, because all it does is promotes violence.
Exactly. Exactly. Um, yeah, no, it just beggars belief. I mean, I don't know if you've heard about what's going on in Pakistan. One of the people that I follow on YouTube and Facebook and what have you, her name's Madiha Talks. Well, I don't know her surname, but Madiha. And she's posted about a 3-day conference that they've got in Pakistan because the clerics are like concerned about the rise of atheism in Pakistan. I don't know
Oh,
if you've heard about that. I was gobsmacked when
okay,
I
so
saw that.
I mean, Pakistan is a overall proud racist country. So
Yeah,
it's a fascist country. Majority people, Pakistani people, are fascists. I'm not surprised. Only recently I heard in the news that a person was killed, mob lynched, unalive, sorry,
yeah,
unalived, because apparently they said something that was blasphemous about Prophet Muhammad. I mean, Prophet Muhammad is was a bigoted womanizer and a pedophile, and sorry, and a p, yeah.
yeah.
So if
But
people
it
want to
doesn't matter
express
what
that,
he was because he died 1400 years ago. His
exactly.
feelings have nothing to do with anything today. But I'm just when I heard about the 3-day conference of Islamist like clerics worrying about the rise of atheism in Pakistan, I was well proud because
when you hear about these mob lynchings and people being burned alive and things like that in Pakistan, you'd think nobody would dare sort of like even think about being an atheist or questioning religion.
Okay, I'm
And
gonna have to
yet,
get off because I have to get dinner, right? But
oh,
all I'm
okay,
gonna
no,
say, I'm gonna come live later if you want to join me, or I'll join you on your live. Yeah, we'll talk about the same thing because I
cool,
think we can support each other, and it will just make it easier. But what I will say, I personally think that the people who cannot respect that this is a secular country and they continue to give threats and unaliving and all sorts of things to people in the name of religion, they need to be asked to leave this country. That's what I would say in the name.
yeah,
And I know this may seem like an extreme way of thinking, but at the end of the day, we've got to put our safety, our freedom first.
yeah,
Okay. And these people do not understand. They really need to be asked to leave the country because it is a national security issue now. It's no it we need to stop thinking about the fluffy thoughts about you know um political correctness and all of these things. Yeah, of course we want to be politically correct, but we want to be safe first. Safety comes
yeah,
first.
yeah,
These people are a threat to our national safety. That's all I have to say. And a lot of them, they shouldn't just be focusing on the boats coming in. They need to start looking at people within many communities, particularly the Muslim community, who are, extreme Muslim fascists. They do not like anything about the West. They want to derail Western society. They need to be asked to leave. If not, they need to be kicked out, deported. That's what I think.
yeah.
Because how long are
I'll let
we
you get
going
on
to?
with your making your dinner. My
Yeah.
views are slightly different, but only ever so slightly. So
What's
you're
your views?
welcome to carry on listening.
Okay, I'm gonna get off. I'll listen to your
Yeah,
views and then I'm gonna carry on because I have to get dinner. But I
oh,
really
okay.
wanted to come on and support you, and I wanted to tell you that I love you and you're an
I love
amazing
you too,
person. And keep
and
doing
you.
this. Keep raising your
Thank
voice. I'm
you.
with you. All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. You take good care of yourself, and bye for now.
All right. Bye.
So yeah, what Mahi was saying,
Agree with most of what she said just now. The only difference, the only thing I would disagree on is I don't think Islamists should be sent back. I think they should be imprisoned. If they are making death threats or unaliving people and things like that, I think they should be imprisoned here, unless they have no right to stay because they're not British citizens. Um, but yeah, no, I think they should definitely feel that they should have consequences and people should be fighting back against this and not kowtowing to it. Because I don't want anywhere in the world to have to deal with these Islamists. I think these Islamists and these sorts of heinous behaviors should be dealt with everywhere and be put a stop to everywhere, either through imprisonment or, re-education or whatever. And I think, one of the biggest things that we need to do is expose and have a really brutally honest conversation about these religious dogmas, because there isn't. As soon as you try and have an honest conversation about these religious dogmas, you get burned, or literally burned alive, or you get sort of like beaten up, or all sorts of threats. I was just doing a live on one of my other channels, one of my other profiles, a few minutes before I came on here, and one of the guys was saying, "Oh, you like to dice with death, don't you?" um and really veiled threats, but you know that they were threats, telling me to shut up and stuff like that. And I don't want anyone anywhere in the world to be dealing with that. And one of the things I dream of doing is one day being free, and free enough to be able to go to places like Bangladesh, where my family is originally from. um and it just, I know I can't go there because I know that a lot of Islamists, sorry, I know a lot of atheists and critical thinkers and free thinkers are burned alive there, and beheaded and stabbed and murdered in broad daylight, and I don't want that happening there any more than I want it happening here. And I strongly think that internationally, I think as a human race, we need to just abolish the shit out of this and actually expose it. and expose the vile hold these religious dogmas have on our. Absolutely disgusting. And it's not just something that is done in Islam. Previously, I think we should be learning a lot about how ex-Christians and atheists who have challenged Christianity have done their job, because they've done a very good job in places like the UK, because Christianity used to have the same sort of barbaric history, had the same barbaric history and the same attitudes that Islam does today. And through a lot of hard frigging work, people have, you know, have fought the Christian fundamentalists and the Christian dogmas and what have you. And we can learn a lot from that. And there is a lot of parallels between how Christianity's power was wiped during the French Revolution, and what is happening in the Iranian Revolution now. There's a huge parallel between the two, and there's a huge parallel between, with Christianity, when the printing press came out, people had more access to what the Bible actually said and were able to read it for themselves. And there was a movement to have the teachings of the Bible be taught and understood by lay people. And the Christian church absolutely hated that. And you in places they burnt people alive for reading the Bible in their own language so they can understand it themselves. And that actually happened. And so there was a huge backlash and enlightenment against the Christian sort of like dark ages, and it's only just started to feel the effects of it now, I think, in my opinion. But similar things are happening with Islam, because with the dawn of the internet now, more people are able to read the Quran for themselves, the translations, and understand them for themselves. And the priests, the clerics and stuff like that can't get away with that anymore, with just saying, oh, you've got to believe, and tell lies and placate people. It's just not going to happen anymore. And even in like a lot of Islamic countries, people are turning away from the religion, from Islam, and they're refusing to accept it. In Saudi Arabia and Iran, they have so Harry Sultan did a video where he showed images of the Quran which had been torn up and dumped in sewers, because people have had that much, they are sick and tired of the hate in that religious book. And yeah, they just dumped it in the sewers. And that is happening in the homeland of Islam, in Saudi Arabia, where people can actually understand the book because it's in their own language. And there is a growing movement of us ex-Muslims as well, and atheists who have left have left Islam. It's nowhere near as big as the ex-Christian movement, but at least we're making tides, because if you consider the fact that we have these death threats and and things like that, and we have seen our fellow ex-Muslims being murdered and stuff like that in broad daylight, it's really amazing and brave, the work that a lot of ex-Muslims do, especially women. So yeah, and one of the things that really amuses me is when a lot of Muslims say to me, oh, you don't understand Arabic, so you don't understand Islam, and you don't understand the Quran and stuff like that. And I was just listening to this ex-Muslim called Garda that people should try and look up. She's she's from Saudi Arabia, born and bred in Saudi Arabia, and she's read all of these religious books and texts and things like that and understood them. And she understands Arabic better than she understands English, and she's rejected Islam. And in Saudi Arabia, people have put the Quran in the sewers. You know what I mean? So I think it's not as clear cut as, Muslims bad and everybody else good. I think there are a lot of closeted atheists and critical thinkers in the Muslim community, but they are having to hide um, because of the threats that we get and things like that. And yeah, it's just really disgusting and tragic to see that a lot of the like nasty like threats and the blasphemy laws and things like that that are in places like Islamic countries like Pakistan and places like that are are rearing their ugly, nasty heads in the UK, because this sort of thing that we're seeing in the Yorkshire, I believe it's in Yorkshire way, up north in England, with this boy being attacked and given threats and stuff like that. That is the norm, everyday frigging norm in Islamic countries. So yeah, and the kind of bullshit that Muslims have to deal with within our own communities, in the West and stuff like that as well. Because I would never have dared do anything like that as a Muslim growing up in a Muslim community, because I would have had not necessarily death threats, but I would have had a lot of shit chucked at me. And things seem to be getting more skewed and more warped in our communities, and people are becoming it's becoming quite polarized. So you're getting people who are more becoming more religious, and then you're getting other people like me who are turning away from religion. It's very, very sort of like warped. But yeah, I am really gutted because I'm gonna have to go in a few minutes. But thank everybody for joining. Kanye West Lover 911. Oh my God, really? Why would you love Kanye West? He's a nasty little Trump supporter. Yeah. I like the username I am human being. Yeah. So anyway, if anybody wants to ask me, because I will be going in a few minutes, but if anybody wants to ask me any questions or know more about what my views are and things like that, or just wants to discuss things with me, you're welcome to go onto my videos on my profile and just post any questions there. I don't keep my messages open to anybody. So I only have my messages open to people who follow me and I follow them back, because obviously I'll be open to a lot more hate and spamming and stuff like that. But people are welcome to leave messages, like comments in my videos and stuff. Yeah, no, Kanye West is not a brilliant man. He supported Trump, who is like a complete racist and sort of like opportunist pig. Yeah. With one thing I like, probably end on this note, but one of the things that really ticks me off about the sort of like the West is not so much the ordinary people in the West, but the governments and the Western corporations, is that on the one hand they will quite happily use anti sort of like Muslim bigotry to sort of like to be real racist towards Muslims, and just be really vile towards ordinary Muslims. But at the same time, they will quite happily suck up to and admire the rich Muslim, Islamists and stuff like that. They love Islam, but they hate and the power that Islam has, and all this sort of stuff. But they hate the ordinary working, people, the actual Muslims, who a lot of the time don't have any choice but to be Muslim because they're born into it. But they absolutely love like the ruling elites, Islamic elites. If you look, you'll find quite easily images of Trump and people like what's called Prince Charles and trying to think of someone else, but yeah, you'll see pictures of people like that. And Modi is another good example. I know it's not a Western politician, but you'll see them have holding hands and sort of like having a real bromance and sort of like sucking up to people in like MBS, the Saudi prince. And they'll quite happily sell them arms and stuff like that. And they absolutely love the power Islam gives these guys, the royal families within the Middle East and stuff like that. They absolutely love it, and they admire it and everything, and a lot of the Christian sort of like leadership as well in the world, the hierarchy, like the Pope and that, have a huge amount of respect for these guys. They've got a lot in common. And, yeah, it just saddens me when I see people thinking that there's a difference between the West and the East, because there's not. When you look at the ruling elites, they want the same sort of crap to keep us, the rest of us, down and fighting amongst ourselves and working in sweatshop labor conditions and things like that. But that's a conversation for another day. Yeah, exactly. The Christian right here is trying to set up the same system. Exactly. That's the whole issue with the abortion rights in the USA, isn't it? And in the UK, shortly after the abortion ban was voted in the UK, we had some Tory MP arseholes come out and say that it's a good thing. So yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna have to go. But everybody who's joined in and shown me support, thank you very much. And yeah, take good care of yourselves. And yeah, humanity first above everything else. And thank you guys for joining in. And I hopefully see you guys again over the next few days. I'm going to try and do more live. So yeah, all right, take care. Bye for now.